Hey folks, this is Rhykker. For the past 2 weeks, the Overwatch world has been going absolutely crazy over the latest Sombra clues. For about a month now, Blizzard has been giving us secret hidden clues as to the identity of Overwatch's next character, Sombra. And this currently, we are in the midst of the most complex cryptography, just absolute insane Illuminati code-breaking stuff we've come across yet. The past couple clues that Blizzard teased us with were solved within hours, a day at most. This one, it's been like a couple weeks, and fortunately we finally made some progress, but damn has it been tough, and Blizzard's had to give us some additional clues along the way to help us out. And the great news is that this latest breakthrough that we made really gives us a pretty solid clue or hint towards who Sombra may be. Now, if you haven't been following, this all started back in July 12th. Blizzard released a new video on Ana. So it all started with the Ana Origins trailer. Observers noted that there were 2 frames in the video in which you can find a coded message. You can check out our video where we go over the full code breaking on that. It was relatively straightforward. I mean, back then it was kind of tough, but relatively straightforward to what was to come. But the message in that video was, translated from Spanish, "She who has the information has the power." Then it was a week later that another video released. This was a developer update on the introduction of Ana to the game, and at the very end of the video there's something that looked like television distortion static, but if you actually looked closely, you'd see that it was 7 barcodes arranged vertically and squished together. And again, we got another video where we fully went over the decoding of that. This was a lot more involved, much more complex than most people would have been able to handle doing on their own, but there's been teams of code breakers working on these Sombra clues. And basically after that was all decrypted, the message we got, again translated from Spanish, was that easy? Now that I have your attention, let's make things more difficult. It was 2 weeks after that the current ridiculous brain teaser was given to us, August 2nd, in the reveal video for the Summer Games. The very first thing people noticed is that in one flash frame of Tracer zipping by, in that sort of speed particle effect behind her, there was a code. This was actually in the video, right? And at that point, the hunt was on. Now, Sombra's message of, "Was that easy? Now that I have your attention, let's make things more difficult," that was just a preview, just the tiniest hint at how much more difficult things would become, and we had no idea. We had no idea how much Blizzard would be stumping us. But Overwatch fans, and I guess just even non-Overwatch fans, people who just are fans of this code-breaking kind of stuff, it's called an ARG, an alternate reality game. And we've seen Blizzard do this in the past with other things, and we've seen lots of other companies do this, but fans of this kind of stuff basically said, challenge accepted, and thus began an effort that would ultimately involve hundreds, if not thousands of people, coordinating through the Discord server. You can find a link to that in the description, but I've had the pleasure of sitting in this Discord, keeping an eye on it for days, helping out where I can, and things have been just insane with what people have been trying to do to decode things, the crazy leaps that have been made to actually make progress, and we're gonna go over all this. Now, the initial analysis of the video did turn up that code in Tracer's trail, but that wasn't all that it turned up. There was something else too. In certain frames of the videos, people were seeing directional symbols, and they found this peculiar, and upon further investigation, they found that these symbols were only present in the North American version of the video. So at that point, it became obvious that this was some form of clue. So people started trying to piece that together while other people were working on that ciphered message. Looking at Tracer's trail, the first thing that people who know about these kind of things noticed is the double equal signs at the end of the message. This is very characteristic of base 64. And base 64 is a pretty common way of encoding data into plain text. So decoding that message from base 64 which is a straightforward process, results in this string of what for most people seems like garbage. Now, if you run this in a web browser, your web browser likely will not support all the special characters in this decoded string, so you get those question marks in the rhombuses. But if you do this decoding manually, you would get this sequence of characters right here. Now, what's key here is that this all starts with salted underscore. As a rule of thumb, when you have a string of gibberish text and then an English word, that's relevant. Now, in this case, what salted tells us is that it points us in the right direction of what type of encryption was used for this message. Now, in cryptography, when something has been salted, that doesn't mean that it's been made more delicious. It means that extra characters have been added to further make it difficult for someone to crack the code. Let's take as an example, let's say I want to send you a secret message that only we would understand. So I'm going to do a simple letter swap, A equals V, B equals J, etc. And I'll note this down on a sheet of paper and give it to you in private, and then I'll write messages in this encryption. Now, this is a very basic code to decrypt. Someone, even without that little answer key that you have that I gave you, would probably be able to figure this out. But if I would want to make this more difficult, if I want to add an extra layer of encryption, I could salt it. I could add a salt. And again, that's adding these random characters to our words. So, the would no longer be coded to just VWJ, for instance. It might be ZVWJYX5, I don't know. The important thing is that I would also give you the key to decrypting the salt, how you can get the salt out of there to then properly decrypt the message. Now, if someone is going to be trying to decrypt our message, getting through that salt is going to be a lot more difficult. Fortunately, though, in this message, the reason it starts with salted underscore, etc. is because what follows, or the first few characters that follow, is actually that key to the salt. Now you may wonder, well, what's the point of that? Why did Blizzard add a salt if they're then giving you the key to the salt, telling you exactly how to remove the salt? Well, it turns out that this is actually a clue on how to decrypt the message. The salt helps us figure out what cipher is used in this encryption. So let's start working in some analogies to make this a little easier to comprehend. So the fact that it's salted means we know what kind of encryption we're dealing with, because there's a lot of different kinds of encryptions. So let's say we know what brand of vault we're working with. This helps narrow things down, so we're not working completely blind. But to get into this vault, to decrypt this message, we still need two things: a password and a cipher method. In our analogy, the cipher method will be a combination lock on the vault, and the password will be the combination. So it's not enough to just know the combination to the lock. For purposes of this analogy, we're going to say that there's multiple ways that you can input a combination into the lock. You know, maybe you can turn twice to the right, then once to the left, then 3 times to the right. Or maybe it's twice to the left, 5 times to the right, once to the left. Please, people who know how the actual mechanisms of these locks work, don't go telling me, oh, the tumblers and this and that. Please, don't ruin my analogy. Now, the good news is that there are a finite number of ciphers. That number turns out to be over 190 possible cipher methods. But if you have the password, if you're sure of the password, then you can just run through every single cipher method until it opens the vault. How does this tie into the salted stuff? The salted stuff helps us narrow down what the cipher is. So if you look at that encrypted string starting with salted in a hex editor, you get, I'll gloss over this here, you get extra information that basically points us to a much smaller number of potential ciphers. So now instead of dealing with 190 different potential cipher methods, different methods of turning that combination, you now have a much smaller set to work with. And that's where we are now basically with this tracer trail. We don't know the password. We're trying to figure it out. We know within a set range of potential cipher methods, what we can do. And so at this point, it's pretty easy to put in a password. You put it in and we have websites and whatever set up so that it'll automatically try the couple dozen or however many different cipher methods and what it inputs when you put in that text, and you can see, am I getting gibberish or am I getting something intelligible? If it's intelligible, then you know, hey, you solved it. You got the right password and the right cipher. The problem is that password, though, and people have been trying different things, trying so many different things, in fact, that it's gone to the point that someone actually developed basically an application that's brute forcing it. It's trying every possible password, and it's gone through hundreds of thousands of passwords at this point, and it's going to keep doing that until either we solve it or it randomly solves it. Now, as we originally said, there were two major clues found in the video. The code in Tracer's trail, as well as the odd symbols within the North American version of the video. So looking at the symbols, it turns out there's 9 in total. And while all of these images, these little pictographs, somewhere in some frames of the video, while all of them were different, they all shared one thing in common, and that's that they seem to refer to directions. Some explicitly so, others just by being arrows that pointed in different directions. One was an arrow pointing right, one was an arrow pointing up, one was an arrow pointing down, one was a compass pointing down and to the right, one was just the word west, another was the word southwest, another was the letters NE interpreted to be northeast, another was an arrow pointing up and to the left, and the last was one with just the letter C. While at first it wasn't clear what to do with these pictographs, especially because at first they were coming in piecemeal and, you know, people were just all discovering these at the same time, and no one quite had a full picture of all 9 of them. But once all 9 came together, it started to become more clear what to do with these. And that would be to arrange them in a 3x3 grid, with C being the center, and then every other way the arrow is pointing or direction being arranged in a circle around that center, starting at the top left with northwest and ending in the bottom right with southeast. This certainly seemed significant and probably right, but at that point we didn't really know what more to make of this. It was like, okay, well, we did it. What do we do with this now? What Sombra are you trying to tell us? What clue is hidden in this compass, which is what we came to call it? So at this point, what do we have? We had this neat little compass that we were trying what to do with, and we also had this encrypted message that we lacked a password to decrypt. For the first time, a day went by, and we had not solved this. It was then, during a developer live stream on August 3rd, that Jeff Kaplan and other members of the Overwatch team were asked about the compass.
But I'm being told to ask you guys about the compass. Are you allowed to make any comments on that?
Compass.
The compass?
Mhm.
The compass?
Yeah.
The shadow! The shadow! The shadow!
You know.
That sounds like deep CIA
I'm your Huckleberry.
stuff. That's way above our heads.
Okay. Gotcha.
So as you heard, they replied, the compass? That sounds like deep CIA level stuff. Way above our heads. Now, people chose to interpret this as a clue, way above our heads. People started looking up to the sky. Not literally, but in-game. And on the map Dorado, the map associated with Sombra, that's where we first learned about Sombra, in that newspaper clipping saying, "Quién es Sombra?" or "Who is Sombra?" So, scouring the sky of Dorado, people started to find something unusual, something that appeared at first blush to just be maybe artifacting, but upon closer inspection and image analysis,
Enhance.
Adjusting the contrast and that kind of stuff, revealed something that seemed intentional and deliberate. In previous versions of the game, this apparently was not visible in the sky, so because this was something that was added recently, people figured this must be the clue. We had just made a huge breakthrough, because looking at this pattern, this seems like some kind of visual code. And thus started a huge effort to get into and crack this sky code. So at this point we're thinking, okay, the compass, probably a dead end at this point, the password, the tracer code, probably a dead end at this point. Solving the sky code is what will enable us to progress further into this clue. I mean, this clue was given to us by the devs, right? They told us indirectly to look above our heads and hey, we found something. So at that point, efforts were made to clean up this sky code, to take it and revisualize it in a more clean way that we could more easily work with. And that gave us these beautiful images here. And then at that point, we're not sure, okay, are we supposed to keep it in a circle? Are we supposed to unwrap it? So efforts were then made to unwrap the image. And at that point, all manner of analysis started to happen. We even had something that has sort of become a joke and a meme in the community, the Sky song. Someone actually took this code and basically made it into a MIDI file, a .midi song, to play it as music to see if it would give any kind of clue. Ultimately, this was a dead end, but just to show you the lengths that people were going through to try to solve this. At this point, so much analysis is being done on this image, so many theories about what this could possibly be, and it seemed every time a theory would crop up, it would just be debunked. Can it be shotcode? No, it can't be shotcode because that could only have 40 bits of data. Can it be an angular barcode? No, because we don't have a start point. One theory was even trying to map that image above our heads with an image you would see if you looked down, sort of in the central bazaar on the map Dorado, with the central statue or fountain with all the strings, the light strings going out. And I even helped with the the image analysis on this, overlaying that sky code and trying to get it to match along the lines and stuff. Altogether, we worked and worked and worked on this, and we were turning up nothing. Days go by. No progress is made. We're going crazy at this point. We're just rehashing the same stuff. We're coming up with crazier and crazier theories. We're increasing our search radius dramatically. We're like looking in all kinds of maps, just trying to find clues wherever, grasping at straws. And it's on August 8th that Blizzard finally took mercy on us and decided to give us a little clue. People noticed that on the Overwatch media page, a new screenshot was added. And it looks like, at first blush, the same screenshot of the attacking spawn on Dorado, but a pretty, for lack of a better term, fucked up version. You can see here the two images compared. Now, when some people saw this, they recognized this as a data moshed image. Now, data moshing is basically a technique where you will change the code of an image, because any file could be opened up as a text document, and if you go in there and you change the text in there, you're gonna mess with the image. So data moshing is purposely changing the code of an image for some artistic effect. So you can easily see this yourself. Take these two images, download them as JPEGs, but then right-click, rename, and change .jpg to .txt. Open these as text files, and you're gonna see a huge wall of gibberish. But then what do? You take those two different walls of gibberish and you compare them to see what the differences are. What are the changes in that code that makes the image look different? And you can use any simple code or text compare tool. Just Google one and you'll find one super fast. And if we look at this, for instance, diffchecker.com, it points out every character that is different. And as you can see on the left side here, the red ones, exclamation marks have been added to replace certain characters from the original image on the right. So the first character replaced here comes right after the K, and it's a P. It was originally a P, now it's an exclamation mark. The next character here, it was an O originally, now it's an exclamation mark. Then what do we have here after the 3? We have an R. And you keep doing this, and if you go look at every single change, you get a hidden message. And that message reads a full phrase in Spanish saying, ¿Por qué están mirando al cielo? La respuesta no está sobre sus cabezas, está detrás de ustedes. A veces necesitan analizar sus logros previos. Again, sorry for the bad Spanish pronunciation, but this translates to, why are you looking at the sky? The answer isn't over your heads, it's behind you. Sometimes you need to analyze your previous achievements. So this was basically Blizzard telling us that for days, we were breaking our heads on the sky code when we shouldn't have. They basically said, stop. Stop it, you dummies. There's nothing there. Now, of course, there's obviously something there, but whatever it is, maybe we weren't supposed to discover it right away. Whatever it is, it's not relevant to what we're supposed to be doing now. So on one hand, this was disheartening. But on the other, it at least allowed us to refocus our efforts on our two previous dead ends. The compass and the tracer trail. So we go back to beating the same dead horse. We're at least turning our efforts in what presumably is the right direction, but we don't have any new leads. We've gone over these things for days and we're just not getting anywhere. Brute forcing the password still hasn't cracked it, and we still don't know what to do with the compass. But at some point, people start to take the word achievement more literally, as in the game kind of achievement. So people start thinking in a certain direction, and we're now looking at our old achievements in Overwatch. Until August 11th. If you go to the Overwatch website and go to view your achievements, you'll see that one of them is an upside down question mark as a symbol with a right side up question mark as its name. And if you click on that, you just get more question mark and dots. Now when writing in Spanish, if you type out a question, you don't just put a question mark at the end. At the start of the question, you start things off with an upside down question mark. So Sombra is Spanish, always speaks in Spanish, or she's Mexican, whatever, always speaks in Spanish. This is already tipping us off that this might be Sombra. And if you right click on this and inspect the source code, you'll actually find another message, another Spanish message saying, Vientos nada mal, no obstante me aburro, intentemos algo nuevo en la misma dirección. And then some gibberish. This time this translates to, damn, not bad. However, I'm getting bored. Let's try something new in the same direction. Literally, that opening statement translates to wins bad, but thankfully a Mexican person told us that it is Mexican slang for damn not bad. Just another clue that Sombra is Mexican. Now the string of text was clearly some kind of cipher, and I'm not sure how exactly the rest of this happened. I don't know how people thought to try this, but they did, and it was solved very quickly. Someone thought to turn to something called a Vigenere cipher. Basically, this is a method of encrypting that requires a password. If you have that password, you can then decrypt the message. Now that's all well and good, but we didn't have a password, right? Well, turns out we might have. That compass that we didn't understand what purpose it served, we thought, okay, well, what do we see in this compass? Let's take a look at this together. Is there anything that you can see here? Any shared trait amongst all these images? Well, we see a lot of characters. Sort of. I mean, the first one has a tracer icon. And so someone thought to take the names of all the heroes that appear in this 3x3 grid, type them out in order, so Tracer, Torbjorn, Winston, Symmetra, etc., and use that long string of character names as the password. And naturally, that was dumb and it didn't work. No, it actually fucking worked. Like, that was it. That was the password. That was apparently the purpose of the compass. And so you shove that all in, and what do you get? Not quite a solution yet, but we did get one step closer to a solution. What we got was this string of text, which seems a little odd, but there's a few things you notice right off the bat. It ends in JPG, right? And you can see the word screenshot in there, you can see the word media in there, and all of a sudden, you're starting to think, hey, could this be a URL? Now, if you go to the media page on playoverwatch.com and check out the URLs of any of the images, you'll see something very similar here. BLZGD, Apip Pro, Akamade, media screenshots, etc., ending in JPG. So if we take now this string of text and just format it into a proper URL, we get another data moshed image. So it turns out this one is Volskaya Industries. You compare those two images, as we did with the previous data moshed one, and what do we get? Well, it turns out we get one hell of a clue. A Spanish phrase saying, Parece que tu gustan estos jueguitos, ¿por qué no jugamos uno de verdad? Translating to, it seems you like these little games, why don't we play a real one? And then we have ASCII art. A skull. It's sort of a little cute chibi skull, but a skull nonetheless. It's sort of even reminiscent a bit of Reaper's skull, but maybe a more feminine version? But there we have it, folks. That was our first big break in forever. Finally, something more tangible than just little teasers. This image is the most concrete thing we have to go on as to the identity of Sombra. We found out the purpose of the compass. No, we've not yet solved the tracer trail, but it seems like this might be something bigger. This might be the last thing to solve. Once we've solved whatever else Blizzard's gonna send our way. Gamescom is right around the corner, and people are speculating that the next big Sombra clue will come then. But people haven't stopped analyzing things. People are trying to figure out if there's anything hidden within this skull. We're gonna show these images here that have been made that just depicted visually in a more pleasing manner. And you can see some interesting patterns here. There's something that almost looks like a tooth, I want to say. It's clearly not a tooth, but it's sort of in the shape of a tooth here in the middle of the skull. It seems around the eyes there's some very interesting either face paint or who knows what. It's all very reminiscent of Dia de los Muertos, the Mexican Day of the Dead holiday celebration. It's basically their Halloween, and it takes place on October 31st. What happens from here, we're not sure. Do we have everything we need to solve the tracer trail? Maybe, maybe not. We're not giving up. Work is still ongoing on trying to solve this. And if all else fails, we still have that brute forcing that's going on. But that wraps up where we are right now with this Sombra ARG, this alternate reality game. It's been a hell of a journey following along with this, and I can't wait to see what comes next. But in the meantime, what do you guys think about all this? ¿Quién es Sombra? Who is Sombra? I'm starting to buy into the theory that maybe this is Athena, the sort of Overwatch mainframe computer there that Winston would rely on. Maybe Reaper infected her with a virus and created Sombra? Or who knows? You know, Sombra saying she who holds the information has the power. Athena had all the information. Maybe Sombra's going to turn out to be that little girl from that Soldier 76 trailer. Or maybe she's the mother. And maybe that little skull could be what her face mask might look like. Would that make her look too similar to Reaper? I think Blizzard could find a way to make her still distinct enough. What other purpose might there be behind showing us that skull, if not to suggest a possible appearance of Sombra? Who knows? If you look at the time frame, odds are Sombra will be revealed officially, or at least released officially, around BlizzCon, which is at the start of November, and hey, Dia de los Muertos is right before that. Coincidental timing? Probably, but who knows? Leave a comment with your thoughts on all this insanity. Thanks so much for watching, and special thanks to my Twitch supporters and Patreon supporters for making these videos possible. Check out these other videos, and subscribe to join Rhyker's Raiders to be alerted when our next Overwatch video goes live. Personally, I just can't wait to get the new Junkrat Zika virus patient skin, or the new Tracer voice line, "Don't drink the water," or the new Zarya spray of her doping results coming up negative. It's gonna be a great Olympics this year, folks.